Hi everyone and welcome to the Architects channel. My name is Sarah and I am currently in the city of Marrakech visiting my parents and the rest of my family. And I thought, what better time than right now to present to you one of the academic projects that I designed in Marrakech. And in this video, I want to focus on designing in the local context and particularly designing in the cultural context. And Marrakech is such a great example of this as it has a rich and very deep cultural history. Okay, let's get started. So, what's designing in the local context? As rightly stated by the ARB, architects don't design in a vacuum, and part of every brief of a project is to respond to the specific conditions, needs, and values of their surrounding. And part of this is to respect and reflect the cultural context of a site. And this means understanding the history, traditions, and beliefs of people who inhabit the urban fabric that this new building will be a part of. A first observation of the city reveals a rich architectural heritage that reflects the culture and the history of the city. It's an eclectic mix of Islamic customs with a big influence of the Western culture. The buildings also reflect the economic situation of the country, and that is a big gap between economic growth and poverty. To simplify and summarize, there are three big periods that shaped the urban fabric of the city. The first Islamic settlement in 1070, which resulted in a light organic settlement built around the Friday Mosque and within city walls. This is known as the Medina. The French occupation in 1912, which built its own town centre adjacent to the Medina, introducing new urban rules and architectural style. This is also the period where there was an urban densification within the old town's walls. Finally, the period after the independence, which resulted in an expansion of the new town following the French structured urban principle, and the expansion of the old town following the more organic approach of the Islamic urbanism. The intervention site is right between those two forces, and it presents an opportunity to kind of explore this duality. After careful analysis of many other aspects, like the planning policies, the sites of interests around the site itself, there were a couple of ideas that emerged. The physical separation created a cultural and socio-economic gap between the old Islamic town and the new Western one that still deepens and persists in the contemporary built environment of Marrakech. However, although both approaches of urbanism for the old town and the new town were completely different and opposing even, there was a common denominator between the two, and that is the square as a place of community gathering. The square in the Medina is the famous UNESCO heritage site Jamal Fna. It's a place of entertainment, food, markets, and everything in between. The new square in the city center is the Marrakech Plaza, and it's the more modern equivalent with mostly a commercial function, cafes, spas, and beautiful big fountains. To balance different functions in the city and create connections of human scale, the proposal is to create a new square. The square will have cultural and educational functions, which are lacking at the moment in response to the current planning policy and user needs. The idea comes from an amazing project by Bjarke Ingels Group in Copenhagen that I used as a case study. The idea of the Super Kielen Park was to create a large-scale square in a fragmented community in Copenhagen, and it shows how listening and involving the local communities can contribute greatly to the success of the space in responding to user needs and aspirations. In this new context, the building project itself, developed following a more complex brief and resulted in the end in a school of traditional woodworking. And the aim of the school is to provide training and education for the young apprentices in the Medina and to help them market their skills and their products to the rest of the city. The building's architecture style, height, and placement of windows were all carefully thought to relate to both the old and new towns. The building fits in its local context by integrating urban theories from both contexts, privacy in the Medina and openness in the city center. Its placement and form allow for important connections. Its architecture style includes elements from both Islamic and contemporary buildings, such as the material layering that you find in internal facades in Islamic buildings, the shading panels inspired by Islamic art to create a mashrabiyah, as well as big open windows that create vistas towards the city. As you can see, the whole narrative of the project was built around the cultural context. And this, you know, guided most design decisions throughout the creative process. The analysis uncovered this urban rupture that was created by historical events. And the project aimed to unify these two opposing contexts in terms of architecture and urban planning. This helped restructure an important area of the city that was neglected but had really important historical significance. I hope this gave you a clear idea of how to design in a cultural context. If you want to check out the whole project, there will be a link down below where you can download it. And if you're still deciding on what projects you want to pick to submit as part of your ARB prescribed exam submission, I made a video that you can find up here where I explain this in detail. For now, thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.